Today's Patreon shoutout goes to Z. Delina Wild Mage versus Ghalta, Nethroi, and Jodah. 2-lander with some cheap spells and a means of ramp. Yeah, we'll try it. Llanowar Elves from the ramp player, and we will draw on our first turn into an Ogre Battle Driver. A turn 1 Sol Ring from Nethroi into an Arcane Signet. Now Ghalta throwing out a Sol Ring as well, and following that up with a Mana Gorger Hydra. We draw into a land, so I think it would be good to just set up with the Sword of the Animist. Farseek for Jodah, Orzhov Signet from Nethroi, and following that up with a Cultivate. So we start Ghalta's turn 3, the Mana Gorger Hydra is a 5/5 with Trample at the moment, and now we see a Nylea Keen-Eyed. That bumps up the Mana Gorger to a 6/6, so that goes in at Nethroi, and the Dork swings in at Jodah. And we draw ourselves into a Wild Blade of Frontiers. So I think we're fine dropping a land and getting that down. Worst case scenario, we can hopefully swing in with it next turn, while it's equipped with a Sword of the Animist, and that'll get us into our 4th land ready for the commander. Seeing our first commander of the game, Nethroi Apex of Death, into play. Lifecrafter's Bestiary from the mono green player. And now Ghalta can be cast for only 2 green mana, so a 12/12 with Trample into play. The Mana Gorger Hydra is of course a 10/10. And they did pay green into the Lifecrafter's Bestiary there, so they're at 4 cards. And the Nylea Keen-Eyed has been animated here. So now it's our turn to eat damage from the Mana Gorger apparently. The God goes in at the left towards Jodah. Okay, so let's see if we continue to go slow. We do get into a land, so could land our commander here, but I don't see that there's much point of doing that. So why don't we just do some setting up for next turn. We'll go Lightning Greaves, and then we'll start ramping by getting a mountain with the Sword of the Animist. Don't have anything that incredible to copy with Delina at the moment, so just hoping that we can continue to ramp and wait for someone to wipe the board. Doesn't seem as though anyone's looking to wipe the board now. Jodah the Unifier into play. Doom Whisperer for Nethroi. At the beginning of Ghalta's turn, a Scribe-Worm from the Lifecrafter's Bestiary. Now it's Old Gnawbone for the Ghalta. Deciding not to swing in though, strangely. So, alright, we'll get through to our next turn. That is a Coercive Recruiter this time, which is obviously really good with our commander. So it's probably time to start looking at Delina at this point. Unfortunately, not going to be able to get down a land with the Sword of the Animist if our opponents continue to just hold back. So we'll put Lightning Greaves onto the Delina in order to protect it and just have to hold back here. The first legendary being cast into Jodah is Sakashima of 1,000 Faces, and that cascades him into Selvala, Heart of the Wilds, making a copy of Jodah as you would expect, so that jumps up to an 11/11. Then during the end step, Doom Whisperer starts to surveil here. And we see hit the bin a Golgari Signet and a Grim Haruspex. Then Poison Tip Archer entering play during the main phase. And Pitiless Plunderer as well. Sakura Tribe Elder from the mono green player and paying a life into the Lifecrafter's Bestiary. Mana Gorger Hydra is a massive 20/20 now. Sakura Tribe Elder being sacrificed, so that triggers the Poison Tip Archer and each of us lose 1 life. Then the 7/7 Old Gnawbone swings in towards us. The 20/20 in at Jodah. The Ghalta swings in at Nethroi for 12 points of commander damage potentially. And we get the 5/6 God as well. So we're just going to take all this damage. The Nethroi jumps in the way of the Ghalta, so the 2 commanders will trade thanks to the Death Touch on the Junk commander. So Old Gnawbone, after the damage is dealt, gets 4 triggers and a bajillion treasure tokens here. The Poison Tip Archer is going to trigger a couple of times as well, as is the Pitiless Plunderer, that only triggers once, so making a treasure. Ending combat with 39 treasure tokens in play. 4 cards in hand at the moment, so can easily get the Ghalta into play again. First casting a Golden Guardian, and now activating the Golden Guardian straight away, which I'm happy about because that gives us more options with what we steal from our opponents here. Does trigger the Poison Tip Archer again, so we all lose a life, and the Golden Guardian comes back transformed in the form of the Gold Forged Garrison. Now throwing out a Wayward Swordtooth and paying into the Bestiary. Ghalta Primal Hunger into play again. Renata after that, and staying at 4 cards, ending the turn at that with what is that, 22 mana held up. We draw into a Wheel of Fortune. Now annoyingly we lose our commander either way here. Been way too slow, had no ramp whatsoever apart from one land from the Sword of the Animist. I think we just have to go for Coercive Recruiter and hit our opponent with an old Gnawbone. Obviously it would be nice to get down the Goblin Bombardment, and whatever we steal we can sacrifice, but not going to be able to get that done here. So we will steal away the old Gnawbone. If I could one-shot the green player then that would be good, but I don't trust my opponents to leave me alone after that anyway. So we could just make a bunch of copies of old Gnawbone, I suppose, and hopefully we can do something from there. I don't think stealing a bunch of our opponent's creatures until the end of the turn is going to do us much good, although with the treasure tokens we could get down Goblin Bombardment and sacrifice what we steal. So maybe it is worth going for the Coercive Recruiter. Anyway, we'll swing in at the mono green player, and then Delina will point at the pirate, and with that we end up rolling an 11. So we'll have that enter and attack the green player. Plus counter goes on our small creature, and the Coercive Recruiter, we will grab control of the Ghalta and take control of the Wayward Swordtooth as well. If they want to block with the Renata then they'll lose that thing anyway. So we see how this deck wants to be played at least. Unfortunately we've been too slow, especially compared to the Ghalta player. Didn't grab quite as many things as I would have liked thanks to the low roll. Would have liked a roll of 15 or above, but alright, not blocking our commander, instead blocking the Coercive Recruiter. So old Gnawbone triggers, we'll get some ramp, and Poison Tip Archer going to have us all lose 2 life. So we end up with 10 treasure tokens. Alright, I just asked if anyone has a wipe. This player said he doesn't with 6 cards in hand. 1 card in hand over here, so I'll see if we can get someone into a wipe at this point. Let's get down the Goblin Bombardment, definitely. I'll get down the Harmonic Prodigy as well. It would be good for next turn if by some miracle the Mana Gorger Hydra doesn't take us out. And then we'll top up our hand with a Wheel of Fortune and 3 mana held up. Alright, so that gets us into a land. Got Inferno Titan and Flametongue Carvu as well. And we can play an additional land thanks to the Wayward Swordtooth. So if we're after a board wipe anyway, I don't think there's much point in playing out these spells, and we probably lose in the next turn cycle anyway. So Goblin Bombardment can go on. We'll get rid of a Dork by sacrificing the Wayward Swordtooth. That's going to go back to our opponent at the end of the turn, so might as well sacrifice these. And each opponent's going to lose a life whenever we do this. So maybe it's worth going for the Flametongue Carvu actually to get rid of this thing. That does encourage our opponent over to us with the Doom Whisperer, but like I said, it's very unlikely that we actually get through another turn cycle anyway. So they get a treasure token from the Pitiless Plunderer, and then we'll deal damage to the green player by sacrificing his own creatures. Well, still not seeing a board wipe. Ratadrabit being cast and going to cascade with the Jodah into a Prismatic Bridge, and then a Sisay, Weatherlight Captain. Can they make multiple different coloured pieces of mana with this? Any combination of colours, so they can activate the Sisay here. And the Sisay is already a 15/15, so could see something crazy here. So it's an activation on Sisay. We can see all the mana that our opponent's generated here, so could activate Sisay multiple times. And our opponent slams down the Great Henge, so can gain a little bit of life there. We can still get rid of him with the Goblin Bombardment. Casting a Toski, Bearer of Secrets, will trigger the 2 Jodahs, which takes them into Animar, Soul of the Elements. Triggers the Great Henge, putting a plus counter on it and drawing a card. And then a Reki, the History of Kamigawa, so even more card draw. So it's 2 plus counters on Animar now, which means that the creatures are going to be 2 generic less to cast for the 5 colour player. And they could search up an Akroma's Memorial or something like that here. We'll see what he fetches. Take us all out with that. And yep, there we are, Akroma's Memorial. So could now go on to search up something that gives him hexproof. So I'm just asking my opponent here if he's going to swing in at me this turn, because I am worried that he'll be able to get hexproof or something like that. Be able to protect himself against the Goblin Bombardment. Alright, well, he's being honest at least. He's saying that he is going to swing at me. I think I'll see what he grabs here, just out of curiosity, because we're not winning this one anyway. We'll just have to hope that there's no means of giving himself hexproof, and, well, if there is, then he wins. It's not like sacrificing our entire board to get rid of him is actually going to have us win this one. Anyway, he tutors out an Avacyn, Angel of Hope. And now we see Surveil from the Doom Whisperer. And we see a Kodama's Reach and a land hit the bin, Viscerous Seer, and Eternal Witness as well. A couple of lands again. Polukranos and a Mesmeric Orb. Then allowing the trigger to resolve, so a plus counter goes on the Avacyn, and a card draw there as well, thanks to the Henge. I think the only way for our opponent to play this is to just hold back, because he's forcing our hand here. He's taking everyone out, and that just forces me to take him out. Yeah, so I think the only real way to play that was to not swing in at all there. And then he can hope that if someone takes me out, I don't give him a spite play by dealing damage to him and taking him out on the way down, which I don't think I would do. We'll just have to sacrifice our entire board here. So we sack our entire board to the Goblin Bombardment and look to see the 5 colour player go down. Each of us getting to do stuff, it's just that we haven't been fast enough to keep up with the mono green player, unfortunately. So we kind of had our hand forced there. After the draw phase, it's more Surveil from the Doom Whisperer, putting a Paradise Druid and a Hornet Queen in the bin. So something like a Living Death would be awesome here from our opponent. But I don't imagine that that's what they're going for, and they're not. It is a Nethroi Apex of Death, and they are mutating that onto the Doom Whisperer. And obviously the Living Death would have reanimated the green player's stuff as well here, and they've got some excellent stuff in the bin. So with that mutating, it triggers the Nethroi, and they're going to get to reanimate a bunch of stuff here. So reanimating a Hornet Queen, Poison Tip Archer, a Nantuko Husk, which is a sack outlet, Grim Haruspex, Polukranos, and another sack outlet in the Viscerous Seer. Now sacrificing an insect with the Viscerous Seer to scry 1. That will have each of his opponents lose a life, and he made a treasure from the, what is it called, the Pitiless Plunderer as well. Then it is a Teysa Karlov, so trying to double up the death triggers. So sacrificing with the Viscerous Seer again, and this time it is 2 Poison Tip Archers for 2 life and 2 Plunderers for 2 treasures. So he basically needs to get the mono green player down to 7 or less life with this, which he should be able to do here, I think. In fact, just by sacrificing his creatures he can get his opponent with the Poison Tip Archer, so looks as though the Nethroi has it here. I was thinking he'd have to drain them down a lot and then swing in with the Doom Whisperer and the Plunderer. So it was basically between the 5 colour player winning that one and Nethroi, obviously. Playing out Luminous Broodmoth, so definitely has it here. So now when a non-token creature is sacrificed, if it didn't have flying, it comes back with flying. Poison Tip Archer triggering twice. Plunderer triggering twice, as does the Grim Haruspex to draw 2 cards. So the engine well and truly set up here. Alright, and there we go. I think the mono green player just decided to scoop it up there. Yeah, everyone got to do something in the end, so I'm happy with that game. Wish we'd got to do some more with Delina and show that off a little bit, but you did get to see the gist of what you do with that commander. Just way too slow against, well, everyone really, but especially the mono green player. They did a hell of a lot right from the offset. I think I'll go on to record another Delina gameplay now, because I've got a hankering for actually doing something in a game, so hopefully you all enjoy it and look forward to another game with Delina. Massive thank you to the few of you who support on Patreon as well. Your financial support really does help with the production costs of the channel, so it doesn't go unnoticed. It's very much appreciated. I'm tribalkai. Thank you for watching.